I just read a developer interview on Splatoon 3. It was a Japanese Famitsu article, and lo and behold, there is no mention of Ox gender, right? There is no question about this individual and her kind of background and that kind of thing. This was a really in-depth interview, by the way. They were like asking about the bandages on her hand and stuff like that. But the reality is clear, right? Like the idea that Act is a they them is localizer fan fiction. Okay, like it's pretty clear going by like her relationship with Marina, like their friendship, their background together. Like Act is and always has been female. But the localizers have slapped they them pronouns onto her and tried to pass her off as non-binary. I'm not sure exactly how they're doing this. Like they're probably like gaslighting the Japanese and I think this is normal. Like, oh, this is how all tomboys like to be referred to or something like that. Right? Or maybe it's just like an ESG thing that like, oh, if we just use the they them pronouns for this obviously female character, we'll get the loans. But also the actual fans will like dismiss it as being ridiculous, right? Which seems to be the case, honestly. Like it's becoming increasingly obvious when it comes to like characters like Juniper or characters like Act, like that or characters like the Theets in Princess Peach Showtime, that like nobody uses the they them pronouns ever. Right? Like people don't care what the pronouns the characters use for them are, right? If it's a girl, they're just going to use feminine pronouns, right? And I've seen that happen with Juniper. I've seen that happen with Oct. I've seen that happen with like Galandra, Nightmare from a Master Detective, right? Like I've seen this happen over and over again. Like I do think this is going to be like the common like reception to this kind of thing going forward is that people are just going to ignore it, right? Like you can't trick an audience like this, right? Like the best like the they thems have been able to do, like from my understanding, is been trying to gaslight people into thinking like, oh, shapeshifters are they thems because a set they don't have a set form. Yes, they do, right? They have a default form, right? The one they were born with, right? It's not confusing, right? Like when you compare Morph and when you compare like Nightcrawler's mom, right? I can never remember her name. Like just I'm gonna have to watch the '90s cartoon again. Well, when you look at those two characters, right? From the X-Men cartoon. There was no confusion about about what they were, right? Like, oh, is it a boy or a girl? Yeah, we know. Okay. There was no confusion about that, right? Because shapeshifting is a temporary form and those characters have default forms and default pronouns, which are the ones we use to refer to them, right? Like that's been the meme. Like they're trying to like rewrite history too. I think they tried doing something in the comics where like Nightcrawler's mom became a man and then like impregnated some chick and that's how he was born. That if that was true, she would be his father, right? Like it doesn't make any sense like in context in like the setting and like what we know of the characters, right? I saw that even with my like limited knowledge of like X-Men and like the comics and the history and stuff like that. I saw that and immediately knew it was bullshit, right? What was the other example I was thinking of? There was something else. Um, Man, there was some other thing I noticed, but anyway, like the point is, like the they them thing is obviously forced, right? It's obviously fake, right? It has no basis in history. It wasn't a thing at all until like 2020 or so, 2019. And like right now, people are trying to desperately try to pretend otherwise. Like, oh no, we've done this all the time. No, we haven't. Oh, look at this article from Purdue University that proves it's true. Like universities are the most woke organizations on the planet. Like nobody respects academia. Nobody who knows what they're talking about like believes that. It's like and it's becoming like more and more transparent. And what's more, like it's causing more and more problems socially, right? Like when a chick tries to tell me she's non-binary, I'm just like, oh, so you're just like all the other girls, right? All you have to do. All you have to do, like it is a basic thing to do, is try and make you stand out. Like, oh, I'm not like the other girls. Yeah, whatever. Yes, you are. It's like it's just one of those things, right? Um, this is, I think, like a bigger L for like the LGBT community than like the tranny thing. Because like the tranny thing, like at least had some momentum behind it. Like there were some people like trying to gaslight you, like, oh, some people actually do believe they're the opposite gender, right? Some people do believe this, and like the thing about the non-binary thing, like it's the same thing, but like it doesn't have any. It's not it's not generally accepted to be a thing like at all, right? So like they're trying to introduce it, trying to like normalize it, trying to like do this thing, inserting it into media, making characters that are obviously female into non-binary, like on non-binary women, right? Non-binary chicks, right? Non-binary females, right? They try to keep doing this. And all anybody does is just like, oh, so it's a chick then. Oh, she, her. Like, it's like you're not changing anything, right? And one of the things I've been noticing over the past 10 years is that it's becoming more and more clear like what damage the LGBT community has already done to society, right? Like we're not in like the tens anymore, right? Or like people can say that like, oh, it's never been tried. How do you know it won't work? Well, well, everybody knew it was gonna work. Everybody knew the stereotypes. Everyone knew you were full of shit. But now that like it's become mainstream, and now that like it's kind of ruining entire lives and stuff like that, like you can't hide the fact that it's a self-destructive behavior anymore, right? It doesn't matter whether you're gay, lesbian, trans, like it's all inherently self-destructive behavior, right? And it doesn't have anything to do with society like they so love to claim. It's because those lifestyle decisions are inherently self-destructive, right? What you have to do is just not be LGBT, right? It isn't genetic. It's not something you can't control. It is absolutely a choice, right? You have to just get over it, right? And that is the official stance of the Harmon Smith show is just like get over yourself, right? You're not special, you're not unique, you're not going to change the world, like you're not going to make it into the better a better place by like doing absolutely nothing, right? Like you're not some revolutionary, right? You are a failure, right? And to stop being a failure, you have to accept that you were wrong, right? That your ideas on your own gender and identity were ridiculous, and that you have to like grow past it, right? I wonder like how many people in the LGBT community are like going to come around to that, because I actually am aware that it's not zero. This is something that like the community doesn't like acknowledging, but like people do like leave the LGBT community and become like normal, well-adjusted people, right? Like typically girls, like I always talk about like how bisexual women like are basically just straight, but like it's because I think that's going to be like more and more of a common thing where you see like these hardcore like just LGBT like activists just like slowly start like normalizing, right? Start becoming normal people, right? Over time, right? Or they stop like valuing their sexual identity so much, realizing how ridiculous it is, right? Um, and it doesn't have to happen right away. Is like the thing a lot of people don't understand. Like people feel like things are just going to keep getting more and more degenerate. But like really, what you're going to see is this very very slow cultural realization that like what we're doing here is wrong, right? And that's been what's happening for the last 10 years. Like not just with the LGBT community, but for the way we treat the black community, the way we treat like the Jewish community, the way we treat like politics and like illegals and stuff like that. Like, people are slow. There is a very noticeable shift in the culture, right? Like regarding these kind of topics, right? And there is going to be like an awakening at some point where like the people who are against this kind of thing are pushing back against it, who actively push back against it as like the most important thing in the world. And that day, the day of reckoning, like the day of the rope, right? It is coming, right? There's nothing you can do to stop it because your ideas do not work,